Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just wanted to check in and do a 40-hour review on my 24YZ 450 FX. I have really loved this bike since the day I've gotten it. I was a little hesitant at first because it's a 450. This is my first true 450. I did own a YZ 426 back in the day. That's the closest I had come to owning a true 450. Um, the biggest thing for me is the power. I know I don't need a 450. Most people don't need a 450, but I really like the FX cross country bikes. And really, what made me fall in love with the FX was been riding. I had a couple rides on my buddy's 2023 250 FX, and that bike, I've really liked it. And so when this came out on the redesign, I knew the 250 was going to be behind. As the motocross bikes always get the first updates, I decided to pull the trigger on this and compare it to my KTM 350 XCF. That bike was pretty, I'm not going to say heavily modified, but it had a lot of money into it. I mean, it had KYB conversion, it had a Recluse, it had a Vortex ECU. I mean, the list goes on. I did a lot of things to that bike to build it. And then I bought this bike and I rode it for the first couple of times. And I got to be honest, I didn't really need to do much to this bike. I got the suspension revalve for me. I'm not so sure I even needed to do that, but I did it. And I'm happy with it. So no complaints there. Aside from that, I did the GYTR hydraulic clutch, a PowerFlow, what am I trying to say? Air filter system by Twin Air. The brake lever down here, foldable brake lever, that's only done because I broke the stock one. Hand guards don't count. Graphics kit don't count. Did a radiator cap. Did the GYTR fan because 450 gets hot, but truth be told, even down here in Florida, that fan doesn't come on too much unless I'm really like doing some stopping and going. As long as I'm riding and keeping airflow through this bike, that fan never comes on. Most of the time, it comes on when I stop, which is a waste of my battery, to be honest. I never um, had a fan on my KTM because I feel like all the stopping and starting and just freaking gonna drain my battery. So why I'm not saying that on this bike is a quick little tip. If you didn't know, that fan comes on when you're stopped. If you hold your kill switch for, I think it's like 3 to 5 seconds, it kills all power to the bike. Because as you know, the Power Tuner app, even if when you kill the bike, it stays, the power stays on for a little while so you can make adjustments. But as long as you hold that kill switch, kills the battery, shuts the fan off immediately. So no issues there. Power wise, 450. I think this bike has such smooth power when you can detune it with the Power Tuner app. When you turn it up, holy moly, it's like Jekyll and Hyde. This bike can be pretty tame to just wild, where it's wheeling out of corners and pulling your arms out of the sockets. I mean, really, that's the only thing that I have for this bike that is you don't see. Is I did buy a Guts seat cover. If you're wondering, I did not buy the flat or the complete seat. I am keeping this rounded seat. I know I'm in the minority, but I do not mind this seat. I actually like how it's rounded. I don't know, it's just something I like. It doesn't really bother me, let's put it that way. Grown accustomed to the pegs, not really super excited about those. They're not as sharp as, like, say, the KTMs or anything. So I'll probably change those at some point. But to be honest, I've gotten used to riding the bike. So what else can I tell you? The brakes, stock, all the pads, chain, front sprocket, stock. I did change the gearing on this bike. I did go up a tooth in the rear because I feel like on this bike, first is pretty much useless unless you're doing some really slow technical riding. Second gear and third gear, there's a big gap there, and it was bothering me. So I went up one tooth in the rear. It helped. I may go up another tooth in the rear to make it even better. But One thing I'll say is I went the cheap route and I bought a steel rear sprocket, and that was not good. This bike doesn't flame out. You literally have to try. I mean, I have flamed it out a couple of times, but that's just rider error. When I had that steel rear sprocket on there, I stalled this bike more in one day than I had like the entire time I've owned it. So I ripped that thing off, kept the same tooth. Because I mean, honestly, it was such a big difference that it totally changed the characteristic of the bike. It was no bueno. So I bought a aluminum rear sprocket, same gearing, big improvement. I think I can go up one other tooth because it's the FX model, cross country, wide ratio. I don't know how fast this bike will go top gear, but it just seems like it pulls forever if you want to, and like fourth. And I don't even use fifth. I mean, the only time I use fifth is down like a fire road or something like that. Or if I'm just cruising to like a connector trail or something like that, just, not doing anything. No throttle tamer. That's probably number one question I get asked a lot is, does it need a throttle tamer? Is it too abrupt? Is it, I guess I haven't gotten to throw a leg over the old FX model 450, but I do know a lot of people that say that that bike was a handful. This bike really is not. There's a couple of ways you can calm it down. So if you have an older generation of 250, 450, in the Power Tuner app, you now have a slider from 1 to 7, and that's power levels. Basically, it says smooth to like aggressive, okay? And if you put this down to 1, the bike is pretty calm. It's very docile for a 450. I'm just going to emphasize that, okay? If you want the on and off throttle, I should say the initial roll on to be even smoother, you can add traction control. But some people don't like the feel of that. I mean, it does feel like it's delayed, and if you put it up, traction control up to high, then you're going to start feeling the weight of the bike, right? Because you don't have that responsive engine, that initial crack of the throttle. That's, if you don't know, if you're leaned over in a corner and you crack the throttle, the rotational mass of the motor is going to stand the motorcycle up. So the faster it will rev, you're going to have that free and light feeling of the motorcycle from side to side when you're getting on the throttle. So I'm just pointing that out. But so normally I'm running this bike in anywhere from 1 to be the smoothest, and that's if I'm doing a long like training ride and trying not to wear myself out. When I race this bike, it's usually 2 or 3. I don't really use traction control. And standard, I believe, is 4. Okay, so 1 is smoothest power, 7 is most aggressive. I just did a team race in a Waldo GP, which is half moto, half woods riding, but nothing really technical in the woods. And I ran it on the standard map because I only had to do 1 lap at a time. So we do 1 lap, you switch partners. On 1, I can tell you the bike is quite aggressive in the woods, where any little bumps, like, you have some smaller whoops, not big, deep ones. I got on the throttle, just leaned back a little bit, and I just carried the wheel over all these little whoops. And I actually just giggled in my helmet because it was so much fun. I was like, holy moly. Because I don't usually ride this bike in the standard or above for, hair scrambles and stuff like that, unless it's wide open. And even then I don't, just because I don't need it. Now you may say, well, why do you have a 450? Exactly. I don't need this bike, but it's there when I need it or when I want to use it. And I think that's the beauty of this bike. You don't need to have it in kill mode all the time. It has plenty of power in the smoothest maps. If you want to ride it close to a 350, just more torque, it's not going to have such a long power band. I feel like the 350 just pulls forever, almost like 250s. They just keep on pulling. This, you can feel like it signs off a little bit, and that's probably because of the muffler, the head pipe, just the way it's tuned, and obviously if you have it, turned all the way down. But yeah, it's something where I'll short shift it a lot and I'll use the torque of it. I do enjoy that part of it. But truth be told, you want to turn the power levels up. You don't want to run it at 1 if you're going to lug it, because then it feels like it's a little bit underpowered, gets a little sluggish. Yeah, I mean, I've had no problem with this kill map switch, this combo switch here. I never spray my handlebars. I'll take a damp rag and I'll clean all my stuff. I never use power washer and hit anything directly, any bearings or anything like that. You just got to be smart about this. Use common sense when you're cleaning things. Like if you're spraying hose on this, and yeah, they should be waterproof. They should be able to handle it, but why take the risk? You know what I mean? It's not worth it. I have no issues with the brakes, brake pads, stock. Yeah, I mean, everything is stock on this bike, meaning, wear items. The chain sliders, all that. Yeah, guys, it's been a pretty solid bike so far at 40 hours. The only thing, gut seat's going to go on here, and that's about it. I'm just going to keep on riding it and see how long it stays reliable. I don't really have any concerns that it's not going to be reliable. Oil changes, that they get done either every race or every 2 rides. It really depends on the temperatures out there and how I rode it. If I'm doing some trail riding and stuff, I may even go 3 rides. Not a big deal. Same with the air filter. It really depends on the conditions. If I'm out there, it's not dusty, and I'm riding alone, I'll check it. And if it's clean, I leave it. I also run filter skins on here just as a preventative maintenance, or I should say being extra cautious, because I am in Florida and all we have is sand. So yeah, that's probably my only gripe with this bike, is I don't like the airbox design of changing it on and off. I mean, like, servicing it is fine. I just don't like that dirt can fall down into there. Aside from that, I got no complaints. It's easy. Gas tank being underneath the seat and everything like that, it's pretty good. If you haven't watched the video, I just completed one of the longer hare scrambles at just over 40 miles. And just at the end, I think like the last mile, did my gas light come on. And so I think that leaves you with about a half a gallon of gas. And I say about, I'll get to that in a second. So I think I could get almost, I don't know, close to 45, 50 miles, depending on how you're riding it. And I think about a half a gallon, because it hasn't been an issue for running or reliability, but the gas does boil in this tank if it's hot out. So when you get lower on that fuel level, I feel like that gas light comes on a little premature because it's boiling and it can't get a good read on it. Because I think the second time I ever rode this bike, I heard this gurgling and I was like, man, am I boiling over? And this is before I had the fan on there. Nope, it was the freaking gas boiling. So I took the cap off like slowly and all the pressure came out, and I looked down in there and sure enough, all the bubbles like boiling a pot of water. But anyway, guys, if you have any questions in particular about this bike, let me know if I missed anything, and or anything you want to know. I got another hare scramble coming up in a couple weeks. This is the bike I'm riding. So yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good one.